So, no. Hi, I'm Weston. I love talking about the Astros. I'm here to talk about game 148 of the regular season, where the Astros lose 4-2 to the Kansas City Royals and drop the first game of the set against the Royals over the weekend. I thought the return to that form was going to last over the weekend, and then coming out of the Baltimore series next week, then they'd lose to the Royals in Minute Maid. But they decided to expedite the process of an embarrassing loss to the Royals to tonight, and we got to watch it. Wasn't it great? Wasn't it wonderful watching the Astros score 2 runs? Really, it was 1 run against the Kansas City Royals pitching staff. And here's the thing. Usually, I try to be pretty I don't like to insult teams. This is a Kansas City Royals team designed to be awful. And they have been. They've lost, to this point, 101 games. The 101 lost Kansas City Royals. And they allowed 1 run through the first 8 innings. And then the Astros got 1 more in garbage time. The Astros have now lost 3 of 4 to 2 teams that are designed from inception to be historically awful in regards, both of them rebuilding and one of them trying so hard to be awful because they want to leave where they currently are. They want to move. Both teams now are at 100 losses. Very realistically, both of them are probably going to be flirting with 110 losses. It's incredibly possible that down the stretch, when you are coming into when the playoffs are going to start, the Astros are going to lose back-to-back series against teams that are going to combine for 220 losses. Just wrap your brain around that fact, if you even can. I don't understand what this team is doing. It's so cliched to this point because they've done it every single series, it feels like, this entire season. You look awful against a team, then you beat them into the dirt, beat another team into the dirt, get fat and happy, look like crap. Rinse, repeat, over and over and over and over and over and over again. I've talked about this team in the past being entitled and being just fat and happy. And you know what? Usually that stretch happens for like 8 or 9 games. They look awful, like they are dead in the ditch on the highway. And then they come out of it. And then they're good for the rest of the season. I said they looked fat and happy and entitled in 2021. You know what they did? They rebounded and made it to the World Series. I said it last year. A lot last year. For the first little bit of the season. And then you know what they did? They corrected it. So much so that by the time they got into October, they were one of the hottest teams to ever step foot on a field during the month of October and swept their way to a pennant before winning in 6. The World Series in 6. This year, in the hangover, and that is, we are so past it being a hangover. This is a full-on hangover. There's no other way to put it. They have just sort of lurched their way to somehow, by a miracle, still having the lead of the division. Very realistically, a team could win the West with like 90 wins. That's looking very possible. Like, we all make fun of the Twins, who are probably going to win the Central and be a pretty bad team, like worse than most wildcard teams. The West isn't some shining diamond. Like, the West is also pretty meh right now. Because the Mariners and Rangers both started off as world beaters, and the Astros were kind of mid. And now everyone sort of merged into this one conglomerative glob of like, pretty good. And that's just it. Maybe we're entitled as a fan base for being upset that the Astros are pretty good, but not much more than that. But that is the thing. The defending World Series champions, who do go out in the offseason and make a couple of big moves, right? Retain a big-name reliever like Rafael Montero coming off of a fantastic season. Go get a big-name bat in Jose Abreu. And then at the deadline, you bring back Justin Verlander. This team doesn't have the want to be pretty good. And yet, they can't get above pretty good. They have been just holding on to this for dear life. And now you come to where you see October very quickly approaching. Objects in the mirror are a hell of a lot closer than they appear. And I don't know. They're probably going to make the postseason, realistically. They really are. And I think they're worthy to make the postseason as like the third wild card. I'm going to say something, and I might piss off a lot of fans, and I might deserve to catch heat for it. I don't think they deserve to win the division. They might win it. I think there's a chance they do, a solid chance they do. The Rangers have not looked very inspired, neither of the Mariners recently. I think there's a chance they win the division. But they have not played baseball this season like a division winner. Like, do you guys remember the 2018 team? The one that wasn't hungover and lethargic? The one that worked their ass off trying desperately to win back-to-back World Series titles? And you might say, well, West. And you got to stop right there. You can't really compare this team to the 2018 team because that 2018 team, they only had one World Series title in recent memory and only one pennant. This team has 2 World Series titles in recent memory and 4 pennants. It's a very different team. And I would say this team, in my opinion, has more to fight for than the 2018 team. Because they weren't still dealing with the aftermath of the scandal. Despite the fact that now we are well over 5 years removed from it, over half a decade removed from it, and the fact that they have won 2 more pennants since it happened and a World Series title, this team still is haunted by that nightmarish hellscape that was brought to us in the offseason of 2019. On top of that, while Astros fans, without a doubt, as a group, consider this team a dynasty, you are not, by the general public, and especially a team like the Astros, who are so bitterly hated by the general public, you are not going to get the moniker of a dynasty until you win a third one. You're just not. And should this team win a third championship, win a third World Series, there is no team since 1940 that would have a better case for the best dynasty to ever exist than this one. There wouldn't. Stack up any of them, and they wouldn't. 7 ALCS appearances, so 7 LCS appearances in a row, 3 World Series titles, 5 pennants, no one. You can stack up no one against them. You have the opportunity to cement your team, not just as a dynasty, but perhaps the dynasty. And they have come out this season, and not for a few weeks or a few months, but for the entirety of it, just looked bleh. I could see when October inevitably rolls around, and that's the funniest part about this team, I feel it's going to be one extreme or the other. They're either going to just somehow pull off another deep run, probably to a World Series title, out of nowhere, or get swept in the wild card. I don't see a middle ground. It's going to be one extreme side of the coin or the other. There was a lot of emotions that came out in a video about just a simple 2-run loss to the Royals. Looking at the recording time, I realized that was basically just like a 15-minute Freudian slip about the entirety of this season. And I gotta be honest with you, I feel better. Anyway, the Astros play again tomorrow at 7:10 Eastern, 6:10 Central, and they're probably going to win by like 15 runs. The Astros send JP France to the mound, and the Royals send Cole Ragans to the mound. I'll be here afterwards to talk about it, but as for right now, that's all I have to say. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider to like and subscribe. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day, and as always, go Astros.